Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Practical Pet Business. Lorin, there is a constant flow of requests, whether it be for events, for products, for everything these days, coming at our pet business owners. I know that you have some strong feelings on this. I, coming from the vendor side, in particular, have some strong feelings on this. But when you were approached about whether it was consignment, whether it was doing an event in your store, renting space, etc., how did you approach that? And what would be some of the things you'd share with our audience?
Yeah, I'm a fan of events, but mm, I think that from a business owner perspective, they have to be approached with some thought. And by that, I mean it sounds good. You know, when you first hear it, you're like, oh, that sounds great. Let's do that. Is not the next sentence that should come out of your mouth. That sounds interesting. What would that entail? What are you thinking? Do you have insurance? Do you have liability insurance? Do you, how do you envision that? What time period does that cover? Do you does that require a deposit? And I'm kind of covering a lot of things because the events that I would do, I did events with photographers, for example, during certain times of the year. Um, that was a very in-depth conversation because, there's a deposit required and, you know, I was adamant that the store hold that because if the photographer, until we got to know the photographer, but if anything happened and they canceled, I could at least refund the money. Um, and there were events like rescue events, liability insurance. I need a copy of that sent over. I need to be sure that we're covered as part of that for the day that you're there. That you have that to show me. I need to be sure that, how do you run that? Are you outside? Because if you're outside, do you have pop-ups? Because I don't want the animals sitting in kennels in a hot sun. So that was my requirement. You have to have pop-ups. You have to have something that cools the animals off. You have to, you have what kind of, or if it's colder out, do you have, warmers or anything? There was a lot that goes into it that I don't think, store owners think about. Do you have to think about it? No. It's not your event, but it does reflect on you. And I care about the animals, especially, that are there for events. So I want to be sure that they're comfortable and that their setup is the best. I want to be sure that people bringing in their animals, that it's safe and secure, and that the people that are going to be dealing with them are animal friendly. Just because they can take pictures of them doesn't mean that they love animals, just means that they can take pictures of them. I want to know that they're going to be patient and, if an animal potties when they're not supposed to because they're nervous, that the photographer's not going to have a meltdown. Are there, whatever the events are, that there's a discussion that occurs, even if it's training, all of those things, all of those things reflect on you as a business. I am not as fond of somebody coming in and renting space on a regular basis, because that reflects on you repeatedly. They become part of who you are. If their business policies are different than yours, it gets confusing for the customer. If that their section, it's like, are you renting an antique mall? If their section isn't open, they can't make it in. Who rents that? You run that? You take that responsibility on? Because you shouldn't. They're renting space, and then that part of your store is not available to people. What excuses do you have to give them? Consignment? That's different. If you're going to do consignment, what a great thing to do during the holidays. If somebody is just doing something holiday themed and you're like, okay, I'll take 25 of these. I don't want to own them, because they're holiday themed. We'll sell whatever we can. Let's work out the agreement on what that's going to look like in a split. And then you take back whatever's left, kind of thing. So it's a little bit all over the place. The bottom line here is it has to be talked out. It has to be thought out and talked out, and it's different from every single person to every single person.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and as someone who did rent out space, when I was doing the photographer, it was something that I really had to plan in advance. And so from the store standpoint, I also needed to know what they were planning. And I think that's an important part as you're thinking about, am I going to rent space or am I going to support this, charity event? I love all the things that you brought up. You got to have all of the legal stuff in place for peace of mind and the security for everybody. The additional part of that is what else is going on in your store, in your parking lot, in your suite of stores in that complex as well. There were times where I would actually turn down because I'm like, they rent that place two doors down from you out as a come and take a photo with Santa. That they don't allow pets there is not enough for of a reason for me to say, let me set up something similar because it's just not enough of a difference maker. Um, and maybe let's do something instead of for Christmas theme, let's do it for Easter, or let's do it for, Halloween, or there were so many ways to get creative. Valentine's Day was one of my favorite ones.
Right.
And so, you know, I think when you're calendaring those things out, you got to look at all of what's going on for your business, what's going on around your business, and really have a plan of does this make sense? I like when you said that it is a reflection no matter what, and it's a two-way reflection. But if you're the one that most people come to on a regular basis and know you for what you are, it's got to be. I would rather not have the amount of times where I heard stories from different pet stores of, oh my gosh, Rob, we had someone here, doing Santa photos a year or two ago, and they just showed up with a chair and a curtain, and you roll in with the props, a full Santa chair, and the blah blah. I mean, it is such a difference, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure that's going to be great because your customers are thinking, oh, we're signing up for something the backside, which means I've got to do more marketing and have more in here for them to know they're not getting that experience. They're getting my experience. I also love that you talked about the consignment thing. I love that, especially during certain times of the year. I really love that notion. I used to, it used to be like, oh, hey, let's have a local section for local, artisans and businesses in this area. And you still see that quite a bit. Um, these days, I've seen that expand out and it's just more for the season or specific things that fit in. I like that a lot. And I agree with you. What a great way. Not everybody wants to do consignment. Okay. But there are plenty out there who will. And if it fits what you're doing as a business and you're looking for something unique, what a great way to bring people back into the store for something that they're only going to see for this small, time frame. It's one of the things, even the biggest of box stores does that on a regular basis. When you walk in and you see their holiday things or their limited time offerings, they truly mean it. It's a limited time offering. So if you're going to use that, make sure you're letting your folks know that I've got them. I've got this unique thing going on for the month of whatever, and I'm going to have these artisans or this, et cetera. Um, you can get pretty creative, and I like that. That's a great call out by you. Um, another one that you didn't hit on, which is interesting to me because having been a vendor, there was plenty of times where people would say, well, we'll put you on the store, but you got to pay for the shelf space. That's
Right.
something I do not like. Not because, oh, it's a cost. I don't like it because it just felt like there was not belief in the product. And why am I putting myself in your store paying for this space? You're either going to promote the heck out of it because I'm paying for that shelf space, or you're not. And in either case, I'm not seeing the total benefit. So I get asked that a lot by a lot of manufacturers and vendors. Hey, what do you think? They've offered us this shelf space. And I always say, so the motivation is the money up front. I I don't know how they're a great advocate for you if they're not bringing you in because they want their customers to know about you, to benefit from you. So I'm interested how you view that and how you give guidance for that because I know you can't bring everything in, and every bit of shelf space is so valuable. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I've never been a fan of that. The exception to that would be, and this is a little bit off topic, but the exception to that would be freezers because not every
Yes,
brand can afford a
yes,
freezer. So when they're buying a freezer shelf, that's different. When you're
yes. Good
buying
call.
shelf space, where I see that is where people buy an end cap, brands buy an end cap.
Yeah,
I hate that. I really do. I hate that. It's very common. It's not just in the pet industry. Every shelf in my store was valuable.
yeah,
Every shelf, every location. You didn't get in my store because you could buy space. You got in my store because I felt like you were fit. I felt like you had something that nobody else had, or that it fit a need that wasn't being answered either enough, fully, uh, in totality, for every animal, whatever it was, that there was a reason for you to be there. I didn't need to, cannibalize any of my
right.
other products. So, there had to be a genuine need. So when I looked at a product, they were judged on their merit solely. This buying shelf space, the number of times that I heard from manufacturers that would buy shelf space, usually an end cap, and then come in a week later and somebody else had that shelf space. It's dirty. It's
Yeah,
just I don't personally like it. It's like, if you're going to do that, then uphold your end of the commitment as a retailer. But I find it dirty on the part of the manufacturer too, because they're incentivizing, and it's like, isn't your product enough? If your product is enough, you shouldn't need to incentivize it that way. I'd rather have you do something that promote it, or,
yes,
did something that got it into the consumer's hand easier, quicker, better, faster, so that I could sell more of it, that I could create a following of it. And then who the heck cares about the shelf space
yeah,
cost? It's going to pay for itself. But when it comes to consignment areas, specifically consignment would be items that you don't necessarily want to commit to, that are either seasonal, or they're very small, vendors. Maybe they're local, they're artisans, they're crafters, whatever. Maybe they make treats, something like that. And you want to give them a shot because they're locally made. You have a locally made section, a seasonal section, whatever. But that way you're not stuck. The one thing I will say is that whatever you do when it comes to renting space or doing consignment or bringing in someone for an event, the the potential for problems is going to fall on you, the retailer, primarily, because everything's a reflection on you. It's all your customers coming in there. It's all exposure for the vendor, event person, consignment, whatever. So cover your butt. Make sure
yeah.
that you address everything, that there is nothing that is vague or gray, so that you don't have any issues after the fact. Get it in writing, put it together so that it makes sense, and protect yourself.
Yeah, I like that. And you had such a good point there with the freezers, the refrigerators, things that require um, additional investment. That makes total sense. Things that require you to remove a shelf and shelf space, that makes sense. And I think back to a number of things that required electricity if they were going to be put in the stores and things of that nature. That's an extra cost that you don't have for putting something on the shelf. that you want your customers to have access to. So great call out there. I think one of the other elements of this is just it can be a great avenue for you to be able to have change
Mm.
without completely disrupting your store's flow and all the rest of that. You've got something fresh coming in. You've got like, hey, we haven't been there in, a few weeks. And I think that just goes back to that notion of how do you keep things fresh? How are you viewed by your pet parents who are coming in to purchase things, to see things? I always I'm uplifted when I see something new in a store. So I do like that, and I definitely see what you're saying there in a number of the different areas. This is a great tool for you if you use it right, and yet at
Mm.
the end of the day, you really want to make sure it does still align. It doesn't take away from the other things that you're doing. It doesn't cause a false sense of, oh, we love this because X or Y. It's we love this. We brought this into the store for this reason. And that's what I like with what you said about the consignment and or specific, local artisan support is you're saying I'm giving it a chance for this reason. You're not saying I can swear it's been here for 25 years and they're the best
Right.
in the industry at all. You're saying, hey, listen, I'm a small business as well. I wanted to support, so I've got this little section over here. Um, Same thing with, hey, I've got these outfits. Now your store could have been an entire store of outfits and leashes and collars and all that. But that's one where it's like, hey, we got the holidays coming up. Maybe there's a little, section for this or for that that I'm bringing in. One of the cool things, and you sparked me when you said this with the local that I saw a couple years ago. I thought it was brilliant. So brilliant, I actually included one of my books in their holiday gift basket. It was a holiday gift basket made easy, all from local, things and or unique things, and they put together. And it was so funny. They were doing 250 baskets. That was it, and they let their people know, and it was like it was funny. It was this limited edition basket that sold out in the first weekend it was available. And and the funny thing was we had this debate of, well, nobody really knows the count, so if you want to put together another 500 baskets. But it was one of those cool things. And look for those unique opportunities, because in this basket, what I did, I signed every book. And, my book was on the shelves in other places. It just wasn't signed. And that's what made,
Right.
unique in that basket along with other things.
Well, and who doesn't love local, right? And no matter
Oh
where
my
you
gosh.
live, everybody is proud of where they live.
Yeah.
So, the local thing goes over big.
Yeah.
And you don't really realize how much local talent you have until you start heavily investigating it. And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And your
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce is a good place to start to, get a list of some of those. And, you can put something out on social media that we're doing an artisan area or an artisan type of event for the holiday, whatever it is. And you can start to
Yeah.
create that networking opportunity with local artisans who are focused on their little niche. And when somebody comes to them and buy something, they're going to say, do you know where I can get? Yeah, there's this cute little pet store over here,
Yeah.
and they'll have something perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. A lot of great ideas here. Folks, what are you doing with your space? Obviously, today's conversation has been around what we've experienced, but we want to know what you're doing. Tell us some of the unique things that you're doing within your store, within your shelving space, within the events that you do. Is consignment the pathway that you choose? Is renting the space? Is charging for the shelf space? What works best? Everybody's got different reasons for doing what they're doing. We'd love to hear some of yours. Send us an email, practicalpetchat@gmail.com. As always, have a great week. Be successful. Thank you for all that you do for the pet world and those pet parents that you save. We appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you next week on another Practical Pet Business.
Bye, guys.
The content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.